Chuckle Brothers were a fantastic double act, and so were Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. A lot of people will say one half of that double act is joining us now. It's Gordon Brown. Mr. Brown, were you a fan of the Chuckle Brothers, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, and partnerships work sometimes, and they work quite well.
Partnerships work sometimes, yeah. We can see what you're going with that one. Now, listen, world leaders are meeting in Rome this weekend for the G20 summit, aren't they? And I know that you're one of a group of prominent figures calling for rich nations, including here in the UK, to stop hoarding COVID vaccines. Tell us more about why you think this is such an urgent issue. We know that there are so many places around the world, so many people that haven't even had their first dose of the vaccine yet. What is it that should be happening to make sure that those people get the doses of the vaccine they so desperately need?
Charlotte, you're right. Nobody's really safe until everybody's vaccinated everywhere. And what's happening is that the disease is spreading in the poorer countries. It's going to mutate. We're going to have new variants like Delta. They're going to come back to haunt even the fully vaccinated here. So it's in all our interests to get the vaccines round the world to everyone. Now, the good news is we have the vaccines. We've just got to get them out to people. The bad news is that the World Health Organization is predicting 5 million more deaths. You know, today we passed the 5 million figure for deaths from COVID, a terrible figure. 5 million more if we don't vaccinate. We've had 245 million cases around the world. We could have 200 million more. So we're just over halfway through this unless we get the vaccination out to people. So there are 240 million unused vaccines in the 4 big countries of the West. We could airlift them out immediately. We could start to get people vaccinated and prevent the disease spreading. And I'm really saying tomorrow, when all these G20 leaders meet, they are the people who control the vaccines. Make a decision, get the unused vaccines out. And that's unused after the boosters. We count them in. You've done the boosters. You've set aside for the young people to get vaccinated. You've still got 200 million or more left. You get them out to the people who need them. And then there's more coming in the next few months that can solve the problem in poorer countries.
What do you think the issue has been over this? Is it because there are those fears that we're going to need them? Because we know that they go out of date after a certain amount of time. It's predicted that the global stockpile could jump to a staggering 1 billion surplus jabs by the end of the year. So there's no doubt that the capacity is there. Is it a reluctance? Is it just a failure in logistics? What's the problem here?
You know, Charlotte, we're estimating, and this is a very big research exercise, 100 million vaccines might have to be destroyed because they passed their use-by date, they're expiring, and we haven't got them out to people who need them. So what's happened is that countries have over-ordered in their enthusiasm to get vaccines, and that's right, but they've over-ordered. Now they've got these surpluses. What they've got to do is not hold on to them and hoard them. They've got to get them out to people. So it's an airlift of vaccines. It needs to be organised by the countries who've got the vaccines. That's Britain, America, the European Union and Canada. And then you can talk about China, Korea and Japan. They've got the vaccines. Get them out to people immediately and save lives and stop it coming back and spreading with new variants, because I think everybody's worried that you'll have another kind of Delta coming back to hit us.
Well, like you say, it's good timing to talk about this. All the world leaders are together for COP26. We'll see whether it has any ground there. Let's talk about something else. Let's go back to Wednesday lunchtime. Were you having sort of weird sort of daydreams Wednesday afternoon, looking at Rishi Sunak's budget going, hang on, has he got my notebook? Because it was textbook Gordon Brown budget, wasn't it?
No, not really, because you've got to judge a budget 2 days on. And 2 days on, people are talking about what's really happening, and that's living standards are falling. Taxes are going up, energy bills are going up, food prices are going up. Everybody who goes to a shop knows that prices have been going up and living standards are falling. And you can't talk about the future unless you have growth in the economy. And apart from the catch-up, I saw this figure in the budget report, 1% growth in 2024. Now, that means that not only will living standards fall this year and next, but they're not going to rise fast unless we do something about it. And it means that when the Chancellor's talking about, I can do tax cuts and I can spend more money, if he doesn't have growth, he can do neither. So I think that what we needed was a long-term plan to get growth back into our economy. We've got great genius of scientists and inventors, and we've got to get them moving to get the industries of the future. And that's what was missing from the budget.
If you were in the Labour Party now, what would be your strategy to try and gain some ground? Because looking on the outside, the Conservatives, they appear to have stolen their costume, the Labour costume, haven't they?
Well, we're not having the levelling up that we want. And while the government talks about it, if you take £20 a week from 6 million families, they're not being levelled up, they're being levelled down. if you raise your taxes and then you have your energy bills on top of it, people are doing worse. So we've got to show people that the way to increase living standards in the future is to get back to good growth. And we need good jobs, which are well-paying jobs, but that's got to be based on good growth in the economy. And that's where I would be if I had Labour Party. I say, look, we can create a new Britain. We've got huge opportunities with new technology, but we've got to grow as an economy, and we've got to put in place not just these short-term strategies to make people feel good on the day of a budget and then find that 2 days later they're all worse off. We've got to have this long-term strategy for the future.
Okay. Well, when we're talking about things in the budget, one of the things that was criticised was the green measures, wasn't it? The freeze of the fuel duty, the cut in the air passenger duty for domestic flights, said to be signalling a bit of a wrong message ahead of COP26. There is this fear, isn't there, that there's going to be a lot of talk and no action from the summit. What do you make of it?
You're right. I've chaired these big meetings. We had a big conference in London in 2009, perhaps the biggest to deal with the financial crisis. And the chair of the conference, you've got to lead, you've got to have a plan. And my fear is they're all flying in. And the biggest thing we've got to do, there'll be announcements, of course, on coal, that you're going to phase out coal, cars, we're going to have electric cars, forests, we're going to build more trees. But the key thing is, are we going to be able to cut our carbon emissions around the world over the next 10 years? Not in 2050, but over the next 10 years. And I don't think that the government has put forward a strategy that you can get everybody on board so that we can say that by 2025 and 2030, we really are cutting carbon emissions to the level that's necessary. And that's the job of the next 2 weeks, to get everybody around the table, to persuade them, and it's in all our interests to do this together, and to get these carbon emissions cut. And you've got China not coming, you've got Russia not coming. It's a real problem because you need them all around the table, but you've got to try to get through to them in the next few days.
OK. Thanks for joining us, former Prime Minister Gordon Brown, this morning on Good Morning Britain.